Hi, I'm Lisa Gonzales, Chief Business Officer here in the Mount Diablo Unified School District. In this week's episode of Ask the CBO, we're taking a look at carryover, how much we had, and why carryover happens in the first place. So to start with, I want to begin with a brief description of what a budget is. A budget is simply an estimate of what we expect is going to happen during a school year, based on the number of assumptions that we have and some of the indicators that we get from external sources. That includes the money we expect to come in, which would be revenue, and the money that we expect to go out, which is considered expenditures. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th, and there are a number of different things that take place during a budget year. In June, our board approves our budget. In September, we do unaudited actuals, so it basically is a closing of the books of the following year, or the prior year, excuse me. In December, we do first interim, and that's a checkpoint as of October 31st for the amount of money we have received and the amount of money that we've spent. In March, we do our second check-in, that's called a second interim. That's for that second point in time of November 1st through January 31st. In June, we take a look at our proposed budget and approve it for the following year. And then in September, we take a look back. So all of this is important because in September, we presented our unaudited actuals, and then it takes us a little bit of time to figure out what the carryover is. So the money that was left in specific accounts that weren't spent. But in order to really understand that, there are certain expenditure or accounting codes that exist, and it's in a formation called SACS. SACS is used by every single school district in the state of California, so that if you look at our budget compared to any other district's budget, the number sequences are the same. And so we have certificated salaries, classified salaries, all employee benefits are put together. We have books and supplies. We have any type of service that we may be paying for. We have capital outlay, so that has to do with facilities. We have any payments, payment accounts are in the 7,100 to 7,299s. For example, we had a TRAN this last year, a tax revenue anticipation note that fell into one of those accounts. And then the 7,400s have to do with transfers of funds and some indirect costs. And really it's the cost of doing business for us. But for the most part, you see the 1,000s, 2,000s, 3,000s, 4,000s, 5s, and 6s. And that's really where all of our money falls. So anything for operating expenses really falls into that category of books and supplies. So where do the funds go if they're not spent? At the end of the year, they either fall into, again, what's considered books and supplies, or sometimes services or other operating expenses. Now, what are some examples of books and supplies? I really need you to step back and think about general operating expenses. Really, it's anything that you can touch. Books, classroom supplies, anything that an office would need for any of the employees that we have here, pretty much all of our technology. So anything that is valued at $2,500 or less. So screens, monitors, whiteboards, foods, if we have sites that are purchasing anything, all the parts for over 220 vehicles that we have, including gasoline, tires, again, furniture, light bulbs. There's a whole host of things, library books, PPEs. So again, really think about anything that you can touch. And unfortunately, it has that title books on it. And although we do purchase books, the other items that you see up on the screen right now are really the bulk of where the money goes. Why is there carryover? Really good question. First of all, we have some sites that don't spend all their funds. The same thing goes for departments, and there's a whole host of reasons for that. But a lot of the funds are in accounts that are expected to cover things for multiple years, or they may be, the third grade department budget or the fifth grade outdoor education camp. So these are the types of carryover that continue from year to year. A lot of these funds have typically been raised and saved by school sites, and we don't touch those funds. We allow them to continue to use them, although we do encourage them to spend them. But the pandemic has had a huge impact on our budgets. With the fact that we didn't really have students on our campuses until late March, we didn't have a lot of those ongoing expenses. I mean, just think about paper towels, tissue, cleaning supplies, and toilet paper. Imagine the lack of toilet paper we needed last year by not having students on campus. Field trips, other events, almost all the transportation for the entire year. Those things create carryover. We also have multi-year grants. What happens when you get a grant? Let's say that you get a $5,000 grant and it's good for 5 years. It may be that each year you can only spend $1,000. And then at the end of year one, you have $4,000 that carry over. Well, it's carrying over, but you can't use it for other things. It is earmarked for that grant. Sometimes we have items that don't arrive on time, and our teachers would most certainly know this because we have had teacher laptops on order since May and June of 2020. Yes, over 1.5 years, and they're just starting to get those. But that's an example. We knew that as soon as the year was coming to an end and they weren't here, well, we were going to have to carry those funds over. We just didn't realize we were going to have to carry them into this year also. Some funds arrive late in the school year. They come from the funding sources. For example, there were 2 specific state funds that we didn't receive until June. Well, by then, all of our purchase orders are pretty much closed, and we don't do purchases very much in the month of June. And even if we did, we couldn't spend, multiple millions of dollars on things just to be able to spend the money. We carry it over to the following year, and then we do the responsible thing of taking a look at our needs. There are some budgets that are restricted. It means that you can spend money just on tires, or you can spend money just on a specific type of instructional material. And so that causes carryover. Until you can spend that category down for the things that were assigned, there's nothing else you can do. And then by default, a lot of funds that aren't spent down, the money falls into books and supplies. Not the way that we love it to happen, but that's the way that it works in school finance. So I want to just break down where the $8.6 million from carryover went this year, and then you'll see how that last slide really plays out. You'll also see in all of the asterisks here, due to COVID and not having students on campus, we weren't able to spend all the funds. So we will work to spend them this year. Everything from Title I, it's a federal amount. K-12 Strong Workforce, this is a grant. Many of you know the CARES program that we have. That's from a grant from the state called ACES. We were able to carry that over. Early Literacy Support Grant. This came in toward the end of the year. It's a literacy grant specifically for Bel Air Elementary School. Farm to School Grant, again, a multi-year. And so you can see that while this doesn't entirely total up to $8.6 million, there are probably 9 or 10 other smaller amounts that are smaller than that last 63,000 there that you see. But what you see really throughout all of this is these types of funds carry over, especially grants, especially multi-year. This is why you have money that isn't spent at the end of the year. So I hope that was informative and valuable. If you've got any more questions, please do send them to cbo@mdusd.org, and I'd be happy to cover those in future topics. Thank you.